Alright, today we're going to be testing the Killshre X79 motherboard combo featuring the Xeon 2650 V2 and 16GB of RAM. This has, of course, the 8-core, 16-thread Xeon paired with 16GB of RAM that should give us pretty good performance. The motherboard also does look to be pretty good quality. At this point, used Xeons are some of the best value you can get on the CPU side for CPU motherboard and RAM combos, coming in under about $200 total. So at $125 for this combo, including the price, shipping, tax, and import, is it a good deal or are there any issues with it? Alright, let's get this unboxed and get a PC built around it. So, opening it up, you got the top just protective foam piece, and we got our 16GB of RAM right here. So the first thing you can see, it's Hynix that was used at some point in a Dell server. That is PC3 10600 registered ECC. So pretty much exactly what I would be expecting to get with something like that. Should run pretty decent in a server. And the second thing of memory, again, perfectly matching kit of Dell branded Hynix 10600R. Setting that aside, moving on to the motherboard. On the top here we got our SATA cable, the adapter to like the AMD clip mounting with the needed screws, a socket cover in case you ever need it, and then we got the board itself, which we'll look at next, along with the I/O shield and the warranty pamphlet if you for some reason need it. And then along this you get basically the manual on the back right here, which it is nice to get the pinouts and all the connectors. Pretty much all you'd ever need for a manual, and more you get, and more than you get with most other products. Alright. Now the board itself here is among the nicer ones of the X79 Chinese boards I've looked at, which is definitely nice to see. So let's just take a look. Our CPU right here, the socket is mounted upside down on the board. That's pretty normal with these, and you can see we got our Xeon 2650 V2 exactly as advertised. Other than that, on the board you will need your own CR2032 CMOS battery, and the board pretty much has all the features you would want. 4 RAM slots, these do run in quad channel. Basically standard power connectors you get for fan headers. On here, not a ton, you get your 4-pin PWM and then 2 3-pin non-PWMs for other fans, not the end of the world. And then you do get M.2 slots right here that do work, so this board is pretty nice. It does come with a metal reinforced PCIe slot, and the board just, it feels like way stiffer and better built than a lot of the other boards I work with. On the back for I/O, pretty much a standard 3 audio jacks. The audio is kind of mediocre on these. I think it's usable, but there's some people that really don't like these. Gigabit LAN, 4 USB 2, 2 USB 3, and PS2. Pretty much all you got on here. Alright, let's pop our CPU cooler on next. Alright, to cool these you don't need very much. On the last build I did with this, I saw about 56 degrees on the CPU using just a basic PC cooler, 120mm tower cooler that has pretty bad fin density. With that, we got great temp. So on this build, I'm going to be going a bit lower end for the cooler, then this will hopefully keep it cool. I'm going to be going with the thermal take UX100. This cooler, I bought these for about 18 bucks on sale a while back. They look pretty nice. They're full RGB, and the performance is okay on them. Nothing insane, but If it can keep this cool, that means that these CPUs can be cooled by pretty much any half decent cooler, which is really good. So to mount this, I'm just going to install the included mounting bracket that just screws into the CPU socket with kind of like they got on X39. There's this back plate built in, kind of like what they have on, well, it's glued in on here and part of the socket on like AM4. Then we can hit the CPU with thermal paste. If you're using a cooler like this, you oftentimes, if you're going to be using the included thermal paste, you will not actually get enough, just because these CPUs are so huge. So you feel like that is all the thermal paste they gave us. So I'll see if that gives us okay contact. Slide the cooler around a little bit, spread it out. And alright, contact is actually not horrible. This this cooler does not fully contact the IHS. It is fine. You will see that for most coolers on the socket. Even my Arctic Freezer, whatever, like 34. I think it's the Arctic Freezer 34 eSport Duo that I have on my PC doesn't fully contact the IHS with my socket 2011 i7 6850K. That's pretty much just what you're gonna have used building a X79 or X99 system. These clips are always so fun. There we go. Alright, got the cooler installed finally after messing with it for so long. Give it a nice little wiggle. Try filling all the air gaps. And then we can plug our fan in. Oh yeah, with this cooler, the RAM installation. You can get it, but install the RAM first. Most coolers actually are gonna be a bit of a pain to get the RAM in after you put the cooler on. Luckily I can get it here, but not always. Don't always get just perfectly lucky with your RAM placement. Alright, our motherboard assembly looks pretty nice. That's going to be it for what I'm going to show here. Now let's go fast forward to the rest of the build. Alright, just finished building the PC and got it pulled over here to test. And as you can see, boots up perfectly fine. I'm going to go chuck Windows on here. And then we're not actually going to be testing this one. It's a bit hard to see, but right over here I got another PC with this exact same motherboard combo running an RTX 3060. So we're going to be putting this through games and seeing how well it can keep up with my Core i7 6850K overclocked to 4 GHz because, well, that's the best CPU I own. Alright, starting off the benchmarks, just running it through Unity superposition. The left side of the screen is being ran by my Intel Core i7 6850K, and the right side is being done by the Xeon 2650 V2. The frame rate on the Xeon 2650 V2 did end up being better, and it ended up doing pretty decent in this test. The scores ended up being 14,347 for the Xeon and 12 for
497 for my 6850K that I was using as a reference. Next up, moving on to GTA 5, it performed pretty well, just playing through not the benchmark. I was averaging about 100 FPS, and in the benchmark it was getting 70 to 80, so pretty okay. And then just going through the benchmark results here, you can see on the right side again is the results from the Xeon, and on the left side, just for a reference, to my Core i7 6850K. The Xeon in the benchmark, you can see, maintains 60 FPS over 97% of the time, and over 30 FPS pretty much 100% of the time, and overall, GTA 5 ran really great on this CPU. Next up, I tested Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 because it's basically the most CPU heavy game I own. The Xeon, well, really struggled along with my Core i7 6850K. In the Icon A5, which is one of the easiest planes to actually run in the game, we were getting under 40 FPS most of the time, although it was definitely playable. However, loading into really anything bigger would cause the game to really stutter and not run great. However, there's really no processor you'll find in this price range that'll actually run the game decent. And lastly, for the games, I tested Valorant, where I don't actually have any game footage, but the Xeon averaged about 180 FPS, and I mean, that's about kind of what you're going to hit. You hit a pretty hard frame rate cap at about 180 FPS in Valorant, where it takes just a lot more CPU power to get really anything over that 150 to 200 FPS point. So Xeon definitely did really great in this. Alright, lastly, I ran the processor through Cinebench R20. The Xeon does really struggle on newer AVX workloads along with, well, any other processor from this era. It did get an okay score of 2260, but that really is not great, and it's going to be beaten by any modern processor. However, for the price of this CPU, motherboard, and RAM combo, you're not going to actually be getting a modern processor. Alright, so for my final thoughts on this Xeon 2650 V2 motherboard combo. At $125, that's about the same price you would pay if you were to piece the whole thing together yourself. Being buying a motherboard off AliExpress, getting a CPU and the RAM from eBay, that would also come to about 125 bucks. So you aren't really paying anything for the convenience of having it all shipped to you in one package and not having to try hunt down deals on DDR3 ECC and use Xeon CPUs. The performance of the Xeon 2650 V2 is definitely more than enough for any entry-level gaming PC. Every game I tested ran fine with the exclusion of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, but you're going to have to spend a lot to get a CPU that will run that well. Other than that, though, there were really no stutters or hiccups or anything with normal use, and also didn't really notice any issues in games. The build process with this board was pretty normal, really no issues, and the BIOS, other than being pretty outdated looking, was all for the most part functional. So I'm going to have to highly recommend this. For alternatives though, if you can spend more than 125 bucks, there's going to be some stuff that I'm going to have to recommend. That being the X99 platform and modern Intel Core i3s. Starting off with X99, the biggest benefit of X99 is going to be the upgrade path. With X99 you can go up to a 18 core at a reasonable frequency, and even some decently high frequency like 12 and 16 core chips. It does also give you the option of being on DDR4, or if you want to save some money, you can pick up a motherboard that uses DDR3 instead. So, getting onto X99, however, is going to cost you another additional about 50 bucks, but I would say it is definitely worth it when it comes to the upgrade path. The other option would be going for something like a modern Intel Core i3, which is going to cost you a lot more, but it does give you, again, you're on that latest gen platform. With that, then you're gonna have more of like a name brand motherboard, which there are gonna be a few small issues you run into with these Chinese remanufactured motherboards. None of these, though, I really think are deal breakers. But with that out of the way, if you can only afford $125 for your CPU, motherboard, and RAM, this is an absolute beast, and I don't think you can go wrong with it. That's going to be it for this video. If this video helped you or you enjoyed it, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.